those of you who don't know me, I'm Pastor Sean, and I'm the Next Gen pastor here at the Bridge. This week, our church hosted Mega Skills Camp, and we had over 300 kids from our church and from the community here to hear about the good news of Jesus and to learn some incredible life skills like cooking and woodworking, performing arts, technology, a lot of really, really fun stuff. And over 200 volunteers came to show their support, give their time and energy and effort in order to make that possible. That is absolutely worth. What's really amazing is that 106 kids raised their hands to give their hearts to Jesus this week. That is worth a celebration. That's amazing. The skills were amazing and fun, but the biggest highlight of the week for me was that we got to proclaim God's royal story to every single one of those kids. Starting as young as 4 years old. You know, the first time that I remember having a conversation with the Lord, I was 3. I was driving in the car with my mom. Back at that time, you could ride in the front seat as a 3-year-old. And I remember looking at my mom and going, Mom, when's the last time we went to church? And she goes, I don't know. And I go, I think we're supposed to go back. And she's like, I think you're right. And so we started going to church. But the Lord speaks to children, doesn't he? Yes, he does. And so it was an honor and a privilege to be proclaiming God's royal story to children so young this week. All of this was offered free to the community because of the generous support of all of you who made every single part of it possible. I am so proud to be part of a church family that invests so heavily and so highly values the next generation, that you would give so much of your time and your energy and your finances and your heart in order to make all of that possible. From the bottom of my heart, I want you to know you are awesome. I just want to give you a round of applause. I also want to give a very special thank you and shout out to Pastor Cammie, Pastor Annie, Pastor Christy, and Pastor Marlene, who put in more time, energy, and effort than is calculable. If you see them, give them at least 5 big hugs, because their love and their investment is reflected in everything you see, and they are truly incredible individuals. This week, our theme was proclaiming God's royal story. It was medieval, and Pastor Annie brought the idea and the scriptures to life through heroes in the Bible like King David and Queen Esther and King Josiah, and of course, the greatest king of all, King Jesus. At the end of the week, she taught us that we are God's royal children, and we can proclaim God's royal story to the world around us. And today, we're going to be taking a look at another Bible story that also proclaims God's royal story, and we're going to take a look at how that applies to our lives today. Now, if you brought your Bibles, please turn to Mark chapter 5. If you don't have a Bible, you're here today and you don't have a Bible, I just want you to know that we would love to make sure that you get a Bible. All you have to do is stop by our Welcome Center right out here and let them know that you need one, and we'll make sure that we take good care of you. If you brought your Bible, but you're not sure how to get to Mark chapter 5, I would give you the page number, but all Bibles are different. So I'm going to teach you how to do this. In the front of your Bible, there is a table of contents, and you're looking for 2 main section headings. There's an Old Testament and a New Testament. You're looking for a New Testament, and it's the second book under that list. It goes Matthew and then Mark. That's what we're looking for. Turn to that page, and once you get there, you're looking for a big number 5. Not the little one, the big one. That's where we're starting today. And of course, you're always welcome to follow along on the screen behind me. The story we're reading today is about an incredible man named Jesus and another man who was as stuck can get. We'll get to see that God's royal story is all about this man Jesus, who is actually a king and who rules a kingdom that is unlike any other kingdom in history. it brings powerful transformation to everything it touches. And the transformation that we experience becomes our testimony, a living song, which we get to proclaim to the world around us so they can experience it too. Are you ready? Okay. Let's jump in. You guys know there's ice cream after this? Okay, cool, great. We'll go through this and then we'll get to the ice cream. Mark chapter 5, verse 1, it says this. So they arrived at the other side of the lake, in the region of the Gerasenes. When Jesus climbed out of the boat, a man possessed by an evil spirit came out from the tombs to meet him. This man lived in the burial caves and could no longer be restrained, even with a chain. Whenever he was put into chains and shackles, as he often was, he snapped the chains from his wrists and smashed the shackles. No one was strong enough to subdue him. Day and night he wandered among the burial caves and in the hills, howling and cutting himself with sharp stones. Our first point for today is that Jesus comes to broken places. Now, the lake that they were referring to here in this story is also known as the Sea of Galilee. And this may seem like a small detail, like it just kind of helps transition the story, but it's actually really significant because the culture in Jesus' day would have heard this and understood something that we don't. See, every culture and religion of Jesus' day understood the sea as the ultimate or original source of power for the deities that they worshiped. And it represented chaos and destruction. And if you think about it, it's not really hard to imagine why they felt this way about the sea. Traveling was treacherous, and it was often restricted to closely following the coastlines. The Sea of Galilee also had an especially notorious reputation for going from placid to tumultuously deadly very quickly. And it's all because of the surrounding topography. You have the Golan Heights, and then you have surrounding foothills. And what it does is it creates rapid weather systems that turn up out of nowhere. It can go from completely calm to chaotically deadly in 30 minutes. The waves that these storms can produce are known to be 10 feet tall. And on top of that, the water is shallow, more shallow than it should be for a lake that size in lots of places where they like to hug the coast. So, this, combined with acute wind gusts, caused the Sea of Galilee to regularly ambush sailors and claim lives. In fact, later in Jesus' ministry, his disciples, some of whom were avid fishermen and well experienced on the water, almost died trying to cross the sea at least twice. So, just to get where Jesus was going, where his kingdom was needed, he literally had to cross the chaos waters of death. For those of you who are Bible nerds, this should hit several hyperlinks for you. Some of you need to know that God's love is still doing this for you today. Some of you feel like you're in the midst of storms. Some of you are being swallowed by chaos. And the kingdom of God wants to meet you right here. When they arrived on shore, the region that they arrived in was not a God-fearing region. It was a city that belonged to the Decapolis. That's a fun word. You want to say it? Decapolis. It's like Francisco. It had really strong Greek and Roman roots, and they worshiped the Greek and Roman pantheons of gods who were known for their unpredictability, their cruelty, their malice, and they stood in stark contrast with the God of the Jews, who was accountable to his character of being gracious and compassionate, slow to get angry, abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness. Just another little nugget for the Bible nerds out here. We are kindred fellows. In all of the cultures in all of the world, there are flood narratives. And they vary slightly, but what most of them have in common outside of the Bible is that the gods grew tired of the noise that mankind was making, and so they came up with this idea together to wipe them all out. But then they realized, once most of mankind was gone, that there was nobody there to serve them anymore, and they didn't want to work themselves, and they also couldn't get it all done. So they brought mankind back, and they promised never to flood the world again because they needed people who would serve them. It's a very stark contrast to the God of the Bible, who, his character being altogether different, needs nothing from us, but presents himself as a loving father who is here to care for every one of our needs. So you have these clashing worldviews, this system where they're subject to the cruelty of gods who care nothing for them and only for what they can get from these people, and this king who has arrived, who represents something altogether different. Against this backdrop, Jesus encounters a man from a cemetery. Now, in a cemetery, everywhere you look, all you see is loss and pain and finality. It is the epitome of hopelessness and darkness. Now, if you were going to build a kingdom, where would you want to build it? Here are two choices I present to you. There's one, and there's another. Where would you like to build your kingdom? Yeah. If I was building a kingdom, I would not be looking to expand my kingdom into the elephant graveyard, okay? Or any graveyard for that matter. But this is as close, the scene that we get is as close to the elephant graveyard as you can get. As Scar said, this is no place for a young king, right? I wouldn't want to cross a sea of death to reach a place of hopelessness, but this is exactly the kind of king Jesus is and the kingdom that he builds. Some of you need to know that there is no place too dark or too messy for Jesus to step into. In fact, Jesus moves toward people in pain. He moves toward your pain. Some of you already know King Jesus, but his encouragement to you today is that his kingdom was created to expand into hard places. As followers of Jesus, we need to be ready to go where it's uncomfortable too. Because God's royal story starts in unexpected places. Getting there was one thing. The transformation his kingdom would bring is literally the hope of all mankind. So let's see what happens next. Starting in verse 6, it says, when Jesus was still some distance away, the man saw him, ran to meet him, and bowed low before him. With a shriek, he screamed, "Why are you interfering with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? In the name of God, I beg you, don't torture me." For Jesus had already said to the spirit, "Come out of the man, you evil spirit." Then Jesus demanded, "What is your name?" And he replied, "My name is Legion, because there are many of us inside this man." I'm going to skip forward for the sake of time to verse 15 if you're following along. A crowd soon gathered around Jesus, and they saw the man who had been possessed by a legion of demons. He was sitting there fully clothed and perfectly sane. Our second point today is this: Jesus brings real change. A man once hopeless and outcast is now fully restored. Here's a man who again is surrounded by death. All he sees is hopelessness, finality, despair, and failure. Every tombstone tells a story of something that didn't go the way that someone hoped. And every one of those reminds him of pains and losses, hurts and failures in his life. Earlier it said he cried at night and he cut himself. You can literally see this man torturing himself with mistakes from his past. He's walking around with broken chains because nothing could hold him. He's free, yet he's completely in bondage. The author and apologist C.S. Lewis wrote a book called The Great Divorce. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. In this book, he paints a vivid picture of what it looks like to be overcome by an evil spirit. It's a dream that he had that he then just turned into a book. It's really amazing. He starts off with someone who begins a little resentful, but then the resentment grows in their heart like a cancer until it becomes a powerful bitterness. And that bitterness then grows until the other good qualities the person used to have are no longer visible. Every time you interact with this individual, the only thing that ever comes out is the bitterness that has grown and completely engulfed them. The person that used to be there has been fully eclipsed. The man Jesus encountered is filled with spirits like this: despair, anxiety, fear, depression, anger, malice, bitterness, resentment, selfishness, gluttony, indulgence, you name it. The Bible paints a picture that this guy had it. And it's hard not to feel sorry for him, because when things become hard, don't we all have something that we run to in the hope that it would provide relief from the pain? But these are often bait and switch, right? They offer a moment of satisfaction. They offer a moment of relief. And what we find later is that they become the chains that bind us. So this man is desperate, looking for freedom, desperate, looking for comfort. And every one of those things has just become another chain that he carries around. And in case this condition feels unrelatable, let's consider how something like this happens. It's like when someone says one unkind thing to you, and then you spend the rest of your day rolling it over, right? Even though that moment took a couple of seconds, they said it in passing and you heard it, and now you're like, what do they mean by that? What do you mean I'm not this and that and the whatever? And then everything in the rest of the day becomes infected with this moment, doesn't it? So that it steals your joy, and it steals every other good thing that God built for you in that day, and it just eats it. Everything gets eclipsed. That is the chain of bitterness. Or it's like when someone does something that offends you or makes you angry, and then every time you see them, you just rehearse in your mind what they did. Maybe you explode in anger, or maybe you passive-aggressively go silent, and you wait for them to figure out whatever it is that they did. But the moment came, the moment passed, and now this thing can carry on for days, weeks. Left unattended, it will grow indefinitely. That's the chain of unforgiveness. The incredible thing is this: one interaction with Jesus completely set him free from all of it. He was alive before Jesus showed up, but he wasn't living. He was suffering and suffocating from the spirits that he could not set himself free from. The freedom Jesus brought created radical change in his life and left him fully clothed and perfectly sane. He was literally a new creation. The old had gone, and the incredibly new had come. Now, God's royal story is not just about religion or morality. It's about becoming new. It's about being set free. When you proclaim Jesus as your king, there is no part of your life, no part of your story, no part of your pain that can't be touched and redeemed. His grace is so much more than you can understand. Now, some of you know this. Some of you understand King Jesus, and you have had his miraculous touch in your life more than once. I invite you to remember the depth of what God has done for you in your life. The longer you walk with Jesus, the more opportunities you have to experience this, because it's not a one and done. You have an encounter with him, a first meet. He changes everything. And then what you get is a king who commits himself to you for your entire life. He walks with you through every season. He says, I will be with you always. So it doesn't mean that there's no more storms. It doesn't mean that there's no more pain. It does mean that you have something that changes all of it. As you remember the many times that he has set you free, I want you to let gratitude renew your passion for your relationship with him and the work that he's doing in your life and in the lives of the people around you. I want you to actively cultivate it and foster it. pull it up and just put it in the forefront of your mind. This man also became passionate about who Jesus was and what Jesus did for him. So he wanted to follow Jesus wherever he went. Let's see what happens next. Starting in verse 18, as Jesus was getting into the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed begged to go with him. But Jesus said, "No, go home to your family and tell them everything the Lord has done for you and how merciful he's been." So the man started off to visit the 10 towns, the Decapolis, of that region, and began to proclaim the great things Jesus had done for him. And everyone was amazed at what he told them. Our third point today is this: the kingdom starts right where you are today. Jesus, our King, has come to set you free from things like bitterness, resentment, anger, unforgiveness, fear, shame, guilt, you name it. I mean it. Take a moment in your heart and name the chain. Sometimes these feel empowering. Anger can be a very empowering emotion. But they also empowered the man in the graveyard to break out of his chains. And they also held a living man captive in a place reserved for death. You're not going to find life in those things. Jesus has come to bring you out of places of darkness and into real life. It says that when the man went out and told people what Jesus had done for him, everyone was amazed. What God does in each person's life is unique, but everything he does also has this one thing in common. It is awesome. There is not one person who has had Jesus at work in their life who wouldn't say to you, "I am undone by the measure of goodness that he has done for me." When you see what he's capable of, when you see what he wants to do, there's nothing left to do except sit in awe and receive. Everything in all creation testifies to the awesomeness of God and sings a unique chorus of praise that contributes to a song that has been sung since the beginning of time. As we hear this song in the testimonies of those who have gone before us, and as we begin to sing this song, joy wells up inside us because of who God is and because of what he does. That joy becomes uncontainable and brings us to a place where we can't help but sing our chorus. I have a chorus to sing. God's done some things in my life. I got to let you know. So we do. We start telling other people about the incredible things that God has done for us. As we step into worship together, I proclaim to you God's royal story that his kingdom has arrived. There is real freedom available for everyone who wants it, and it is found in King Jesus. What would you like to be free from today? What chains would you like broken? I think some of you have an idea right now. The Lord's pinging your heart and saying, there's this, but there's another part of you that's like, it's not that bad. You know, I've kind of learned to live with it. I think I can just keep carrying it. Maybe identifying it and saying I want freedom from this is too much shame or guilt, and I don't know if I can carry that. I just want you to know the Lord wants to meet you right there, right now. That is a lie from the enemy. And he would love nothing more than for you to just kind of hold it and hide it like this and walk right out that door. But Jesus brought you here this morning for a reason, and he wants to set you free. It is absolutely available for you. If you are already free, but this joy that we're talking about, that chorus, your unique chorus, feels elusive. First of all, there's no shame there either. Sometimes the weather of life wears us down. God sees you. He sees you. I want you to start recalling some of the past victories that God has done in your life. Even if they feel old, even if they feel like there's not life in there. The enemy wants you to turn away from that and say, yeah, but that was then and this, that, whatever. The Lord wants you to say, no, remember. Say it out loud. Declare with your voice what he's done for you. Because as you do, something is going to start happening inside of you. There's a change that's going to start taking place. Gratitude is going to reopen the well of joy that God created for you to drink from and be satisfied with, so you can sing the unique chorus of what God has done in your life. And this is the way he wants to leave you this morning.